All right, welcome back, Kryptonians. This is Crypto Big Boss coming to you again with another great video. I've had some trouble lately with some of the recordings, and we've had to take a couple of videos down. I think this is my third attempt on trying to say something about decentralized social. Hopefully the third time's the charm. What I wanted to talk about is whether this particular crypto has any teeth or whether it is just a bogus blockchain and whether we need to be wary. So I'm going to probably give some commentary that everybody's not going to agree with, but just stick with me, hear me out, see what you think. I'm looking forward to seeing the comments in the comments section. First off, we're sitting with Decentralized Social sitting at $133.92, market cap of $1.4 billion. And one of the things that just kind of caught me right off the bat looking at it was the fact that its supply was only 10,532,253. The reason I think that is kind of suspect is because of what they plan to do with their coin. And I'm going to get into that a little bit. It just seems to me we would need a whole lot more coins than what they have in their self-reported circulating supply here. So I wouldn't be surprised if that actually changes and then all of a sudden the value of the coin and so on and so forth. But rather than go to the website for this particular analysis, I'm going to take you to the white paper and I want to talk about what they intend on doing with the blockchain technology and why I have some issues with DESO as a project in general. So they're talking about using the decentralized social blockchain as a mechanism to give businesses and would-be entrepreneurs the ability to actually create their own social platforms. So what's going to end up happening is that they want to give people the ability to actually compete head-to-head with, say, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. And there's nothing wrong with this conceptually, except if you kind of dig into the white paper, it appears that they repeatedly are attacking the Web 2.0 capabilities out there with regards to social media, like they have some kind of personal vendetta. And it's actually pretty visceral stuff when you look at it. They don't name names really, but it's just obvious who they're talking about. So I'm just going to read a little bit of this to you. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just want to pick out a couple of things here where it starts talking about, while much research has been dedicated to scaling of decentralized finance or DeFi applications, relatively little has been invested in building blockchains that can scale social media applications. Even though the latter category is arguably just as large, if not larger, and holds just as much promise for value creation. Okay, so they're basically trying to sell this idea that they have built from the ground up a blockchain that will scale for social media. And the current solutions out there, like Ethereum and Bitcoin, maybe even Cardano, and a host of other blockchains do not meet this requirement. So first of all, they're shooting at the other blockchains, okay? So then they go on to basically talk about, an analogy here. Look at this. To use analogy from centralized world, the infrastructure that powers the New York Stock Exchange today is vastly different from that which powers Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. They have completely different architectures tailored to support their respective applications at a massive scale. Okay, let's go on down and take a little bit more. Today's social media is even more centralized than the financial industry was prior to the creation of Bitcoin. A handful of private companies effectively control public discourse and earn monopoly profits off of content that they don't even create. Here we go with the visceral stuff. Meanwhile, the creators who actually produce this content are underpaid, underengaged, and undermonetized thanks to an outdated ads-driven business model. In addition to all of this, the ads-driven business model also forces social media companies to keep a walled garden around content created on their platforms. I wonder who they're talking about there. That sounds like Facebook. Preventing external developers from innovating or building apps on top of it, and giving users and creators no choice but to continue using their apps that solely they control. Okay, first of all, okay, this is just a real visceral shot at the current social media platforms. Okay, and we have to remember that these platforms like Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, these were groundbreaking technologies. Why are we shooting at these technologies that actually made lots of money for lots of people who knew how to take advantage of them? Now listen to this. They say these problems stem from the fact that the data and content created by the users today is probably owned by a handful of companies rather than publicly accessible as an open utility, because only a handful of companies have access to the content. Only these companies can curate competitive feeds. Only these companies can build competitive new features and apps. And only these companies can monetize this content. Content that isn't even created by these companies. I told you they're going to be repetitive. We're stuck in a loop. Users have to use these companies' apps because they have a monopoly on the content. And because of this, creators are forced into continuing to give their content up to them in order to reach in a vicious cycle that continues to empower these companies at the expense of creators and society as a whole. My goodness. I mean, quit the whining already. If you don't like Facebook, okay. If you have a problem with the current social media platforms out there, okay. But then to take pot shots at other technologies, okay, here we go again. We believe all these problems can be solved by decentralizing social media in the same way Bitcoin and Ethereum are decentralizing the financial system. Look at this ultimate vision. Today, a post submitted to Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter belongs to these corporations. Here they go again, saying the same thing, rather than to the creator who posted it, and the monetization goes predominantly to these corporations as a result. In contrast, DESO stores all of its data on a public blockchain, which means that anyone in the world can run a node that exposes their own curated feed. Okay, problem. Let's focus. What did they just say there? In contrast, DESO stores all of its data on a public blockchain, which means that anyone in the world can run a node that exposes their own curated feed. Okay, today BitClout.com operates such a node. So what you're saying is that the very people that you're shooting at, TikTok and Twitter, and yeah, you didn't mention them, Facebook and all the other social media platforms out there. Well, what's to stop them from using this technology here to produce the next great version of their platforms? The very technologies that you're shooting at, that you want to compete with, could adopt and embrace the whole DESO blockchain architecture. So this is where I have a problem with their vision. Okay? So then they come here and they say, we think this will quickly move us from a world in which a handful of juggernauts, who are they talking about, control and dominate feeds, to one in which customers have thousands of feeds to choose from. You know what? Just because you give everybody the ability to create themselves a Facebook doesn't mean they're going to be a Facebook. Okay? Just because you give everybody social media capability doesn't mean that they're all going to be able to, rise and compete equally. These things are known entities at this point, and they have market share. They have buy-in. They are part of the infrastructure of how people communicate and trade information, play games, everything that we do socially, they already have pretty much a monopoly, not just money wise, but in the mindset of what people use today to do their communication, to build their businesses, and to communicate. So this is kind of a hard sell for me, that you just, just because you came up with a great technology, that everybody's just going to stop what they're doing and start using this blockchain because, it's more scalable. The very people you're trying to compete with can use the same technology. And it goes on and talk about how this blockchain technology can be used for NFTs, and of course, DESO is going to help spread the wealth, if you will. So if we draw back from the visceral white paper attacking their competition, who in my mind should be their actual clients and new customers, biggest customers, where would that leave our price prediction? Well, because they were just recently announced on Coinbase, and most people do not have the advantage of this type of analysis, there's going to be this whole thing where people just jump in because it's new. And I do believe that decentralized social could possibly double by the end of 2022. But that being said, they tout that over 100 projects are starting to use their platform. Well, that ain't nothing. And the very people that you are shooting at could potentially be your best clients. I think we should keep a watch on this one, and we should try to just, figure out whether they have a real use case or real dog in this fight, or whether they're just a bogus platform with a bunch of whiners at the helm, sitting up here crying about not being first one to the ball game. I think they need to work on making more friends and change their white paper. Hope you guys have enjoyed this analysis. If you did, please, if you're not a subscriber, please drop the likes and shares. Go ahead and subscribe so you can get this kind of commentary, and I'll catch you on the next one.